it's allergies and not another kind of high.
Right.
All right, guys. Gilly writes comics here, creator of Galactic Rodents of Mayhem, funding now on Indiegogo. But more importantly, we're here with guest Joe Sonntag, the creator of an amazing comic that I just recently happened to stumble
Mm.
upon. Okay. It's called Reaper Destroyer.
Yes, sir.
Name says it all.
Yes,
Joe,
sir.
give me a little nugget of what the heck is going on with this comic because just on that thumbnail alone, it's gripping me.
Yeah, like so this book, first off, I have a YouTube channel that I do shows every Tuesdays and Thursdays, but I primarily look at comic book art from the 90s, or basically just artists that I loved growing up, right? It tends to be from the 90s because I was a teenager in the 90s, and that's where a lot of my heroes were making their mark, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my influence comes from like that, just kind of 90s dark heroes, like, you know, the Darkness, Spawn, Moon Knight, you know, characters like that. And I was looking around the landscape when I was trying to bring my character back to life, because there's a story behind that. We can get in that a little bit later. But I was looking around the landscape, and I was like, you know, there really isn't a iconic looking, like, dark kind of superhero, anti-hero. Let's just say anti-hero, right?
Mm-hmm.
That people can really latch onto. And I had this idea. I've had it for a long time now, and I really like the design of the character. I pride myself in coming up with some cool character designs as an artist, as a creator. And I knew I wanted to do this kind of 90s vibe without doing a 90s comic, if that makes sense. You know, like I wanted to have, you know, modern colors, modern kind of story, and all that kind of stuff. And Reaper Destroyer was a culmination of a bunch of influences that I've had
Mm-hmm.
for years now, going into any kind of pop culture stuff that was in the 90s, conspiracies, some religious aspects in the book as well, I guess, you know, religious tones, not so much like a Spawn where it's like heaven versus hell kind of stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
there's some really cool just kind of theology that I've
Love
woven
that.
into this book. So it's a book, it's a sci-fi action thriller fantasy. if
I
that
love that.
if that
Nice.
yeah if that gives you a taste of what the book is about. And it's basically just about a guy that's imprisoned in a supernatural suit of armor with an ancient spirit of death, and they're in constant fight over control of themselves, and there just happens to be these immortal race of humans that are fighting over this power that this guy has just found, you know, like, and it's a whole mystery to him too. Like, he woke up in an alleyway about 9 months ago is where we start the book, and he doesn't know who he is or where he came from. He's got fragmented memories of his past, and all he knows is he's stuck in this suit of armor. He's wrestling with this ancient spirit of death and wants to possess his body and just basically take over. And he's got to fight all these other bad guys that are trying to get this newfound power and use it for themselves. So it's that's just a little bit. I mean, there's so much into the world of Reaper Destroyer.
That's just
It's
a taste. That's a snippet
yeah,
of,
it's just
of
scratching the surface. Like
the
it
world
really,
building that's going on in Reaper Destroyer.
yeah. And you know, like, I've always been a big fan of Tolkien and Martin, George R. Martin, for just building worlds, you know. And I when I was coming up with a story, or when I was tweaking it from my original version from back when I was younger, I really wanted to have a world history. And now this book takes place in like a modern day world. I think I kind of title it as in a not too distant future, but it's basically like, you know, the modern world, and certain things that happen in real life have happened in this world as well. But I have an entire world history going back to the dawn of time, of creation itself, you know, that I've tried
I
to build
love
up.
that.
And yeah, so it's an entire world building, you know, scenario. And I love it. You know, I took after guys like Tolkien and all of them. I just think it's awesome to really have, you know, a world history like that, and just centuries and you know, gods and angels and things of that nature as well throughout time, and just kind of weave them into the story. So it's got a bit of pretty much everything I think that someone could get into. I mean, I've really touched a lot of a lot of different areas within this one book.
You said one thing that like literally when I first saw this, I was it was projecting to me anyway the darkness, and you mentioned that, and Moon Knight.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it kind of had that, you know, little mashup going on, and the way you kind of saying you're inspired a lot by the 90s, and of course me as well with my work. And I
Yes,
kind of want
yes.
to, channel that energy into my comic. So I
Same
love
here,
the
yeah.
fact that world building is something you kind of pride yourself on in a comic book that you're creating. I could definitely synergize with that. And a little bit about yourself, because you said, and I love this because now this thing has a history,
Right.
because you said this was something that you're kind of flirting with when you were younger. And then you're talking about the design for the Reaper Destroyer character.
Yes,
So
yes.
you're the artist on this
Yes,
thing?
yes. Yep, yep.
100%.
Artist, writer, yep.
Sweet.
I
Yeah,
have a writer as well as Mark Polton. He's a
yes,
more seasoned writer than I am, so
nice.
it's nice to have that experience, when it comes to writing, when it comes to scripting, because I can tell a story, and I have all
Mhm.
these ideas, but it's nice to have that seasoned guy to go over my stuff and be like, yes, this makes sense, or hey, maybe we should work on this a little bit more, or let's do it a little bit differently this way because it reads better. So having that experience was really important to me because I knew I could draw, but
Mhm.
writing is not my strength. And I say that as far as like I've just never done it as much as some of these other guys. So I really wanted to have experience on the book with me to make the book as best as it could be.
Well, dude, I'm just gonna say right off the bat that you're already on the right frame of mind to like, hey, I'm growing. I'm an artist. You're artist. Let's just real quick, guys. I want to scroll down through this just so you can see this is the stuff that Joe's putting together. And real quick, let me just go to the story. In a disparate New York City, Matthew Walker wages a battle over his very identity. So just that I like, you know what I'm saying? Like, who the
Yeah.
hell am I? Like, again, it's just okay. It's perfect comic book stuff. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
there's nothing new with comics, right? But at the same time, you got to have a fresh hook. You got to have some
Yes.
kind of gimmick. You got to have something that makes your comic stand apart.
Yeah.
Just the fact that he's struggling with his identity, I think, is awesome, and he's locked in a struggle with an ancient spirit of death. Come on, man. I mean, this is like,
Right.
oh my god, these vibes are really great. Over control of a supernatural suit of armor to which both are bound. So this is wow. And then when warring factions of immortals reveal themselves and their intentions to claim over the armor, man and spirit form an uneasy alliance. So this is just the immortals, right?
Right.
We're tapping into a lot of the history here. But
Yes.
let's look at the art. We got this amazing cover. I think this is by Dale Keown.
Yes. Yes.
This is an amazing, awesome cover right here.
What's awesome about this cover for anybody that's a 90s kid like I am and collected comics back then, obviously you know who Dale Keown is. You know that he came up through Incredible Hulk and then did his own character for Image called
The
Pit,
pit,
which was
yeah,
just an
Pit,
amazing book.
right on.
This is an homage to Pit #1. And Pit
Yeah,
#1 had obviously Dale on art, and he was his character. He also had Joe Chiodo was doing the colors, and then Chance Wolf did the logo. I went out and got Dale Chiodo and Chance Wolf all to jam on this
incredible,
cover.
dude.
And it's the first time they've worked together since Pit.
That's
So it was
awesome, dude.
it was it was more or less I want to work with people that I admired and idolized growing up, in the industry, because I wanted to be working with these people when I was a teenager.
Dude, you're ahead of the game, and just to get that together is awesome. I'm hoping I could get Kevin Eastman to do
Oh,
something with
that'd
Grom.
be
I don't know
awesome,
if I'm,
right?
I don't know,
That would be awesome.
I might not be able to afford him, but let's look at the art here because this is amazing. This is your cover
So
here?
yep, this is my cover. This is the
Beautiful
wraparound cover.
wraparound cover. That's so 90s. I love it. Damn it.
I know, right? And that was my whole thing with this book. Is like I said, like it's a tip of the cap right to the 90s, right? It's just my
Sure.
sensibilities as an artist, a storyteller. That's where I come from. That's my influences. That's when I thought comics were still fun and great, and there was
No, heck yeah.
good
Heck
good
yeah.
stories, fun character designs, all this stuff in the 90s. I'm trying to bring that back with
Oh, look at
my
this.
universe.
Oh man. So real quick, man, have you not? I mean, sorry if I don't know. Have you worked with any of the publishers and prominent publishers, Big Two or Image, Dark
No,
Horse, IDW?
no,
That's a
no.
shame. Have you
Yeah.
tried?
Well, like when I was younger, I tried breaking into the industry like a lot of people did. I tried breaking into the industry again in the mid or probably about 6 years ago or so. And it's just,
6 years ago was when I tried. When was it? No,
yeah,
maybe 8 years ago, 2014. I tried, and the landscape was changing in such a way
exactly.
where I thought raw
Yep.
talent or just kind of that energy would be seen, and it's like I'm realizing
Well,
it's way different.
there was and there was a lot of stuff in the mainstream comic industry that I didn't identify with anymore, as far as just how comics were ran and stories in general, you know. And I started seeing independence more, and there's some really awesome books in independence. And I heard about this thing called crowdfunding, which is something I never thought about before, of doing my own book and, you know, getting it done through crowdfunding.
Dude,
And at that point I made the decision, like, yeah, let's, you
Is
know.
this your cover here too?
So this is Shelby Robertson. This is
okay.
the other variant. So I've got my main cover and then 2 variants on this campaign.
Nice.
And yeah, this
you
was
gotta
done by
have
Shelby.
Variants.
Oh,
especially when you're doing a traditional comic, superhero.
Yeah,
comic,
and especially with the art, you know, like that was just, I love Shelby Robertson's stuff. You know, he did that for me, and it just looked amazing. I was like, I gotta have it as a cover.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's nice. And some of the interior here. This is who's doing the colors here? This is your art.
So yeah, Kyle Ritter.
Yeah.
Kyle Ritter is doing the colors, and if anybody doesn't know who he is, he's done the colors for Cyber Frog, and he's done. I think he's worked in the industry before. Yeah, Starblades. He did his own book, Starblades. He's just got a wonderful palette. He's an extremely talented colorist.
Amazing stuff.
Really knows how to put feel, and he does storytelling with his colors, and that's what I really loved. Like, he's a storyteller. He takes the script, he wants to know what's going on, and he wants to tell the story through the colors, and he does a fantastic job, and really brought a sense of realism and life to this project. The black and white was great because I work with guys like Joe Weems, Matt Bat Banning, and I'm working actually bringing on another inker onto the project as well that I'll announce once it's actually finished. But like the black and white looks great, but the colors just, it's phenomenal. You know, like when I saw this for the first time, I almost cried. You know, when seeing my project for the first time, I was like, wow, you know.
I can definitely relate with that. I definitely know that feeling. And this is just amazing stuff, man. Right off the bat. Like, guys, you know, people who follow my little channel here, they already know what I'm all about. And I mean, it's been a while. I'm gonna be honest, it's been a while since I backed an indie book, but I'm definitely looking forward to backing this one.
Thank you.
Because it got me excited, and as a creator who puts out cool stuff,
yeah, and you do put out cool stuff.
And I think is that what shows what we're all about. You know, my 100%. Thing when I wanted to create a comic is just to create something I would want to read. And in that, I know others would be drawn to it, and that's what you're doing with it.
That's exactly what this was about. I wanted to create a comic book that I would read as a kid, that would get me excited as a kid, and that's, you know, that was my whole point. And I'm like, hopefully there's other people out there that are like me, that's missing stuff like this or is attracted to stuff like this, that's going to come out. And the campaign's doing very well. I got no complaints. You know, in fact, it's beyond my wildest dreams of how well the campaign's doing.
I'm happy for you, man. It is success, much deserved. And now all you got to do is just keep this, you know, keep the focus on this story, because it looks. I remember, like, you're talking about 90s. I love, you know, reading comics. Like, I spin a rack, pull out some stuff, and I would have just a bunch of stuff, and I'd just be on my couch and just pulling one out of the other and just reading, going one by one. And this gives me that energy, like that excitement of, you know, collecting something until it's X amount of issues deep. And you know what? Rereading it all over again, just going one by one, flipping through it. I mean, it's bringing me those vibes.
And that's the point. The point with what I'm trying to do here, you know, a lot of people, when they do the crowdfunding stuff, they do like trades. They do bigger books. To me, they're like graphic novels. Sorry. And I really want to do a ongoing series. Like, I've got at least 50 issues of story arc in my mind, you know, and the first story arc is going to be 4 issues. They're going to be 32 plus pages, and they're going to be in a floppy form, because that's what I'm doing. I'm making comic books. I'm not making, you know, trade or graphic novels. And I just want to make comic books that make me love the art and story like it was when I was a kid. And that's basically just what I'm telling, stuff that I thought would be interesting, things that I've gained over the years of just getting into different researches and stuff. Like I said, I've gotten into conspiracy theories, so it is awesome for story. You know, when you start thinking about some of that stuff, you know, and you're just like, wow, why isn't this stuff like put it together and made like an awesome story and put it into, like, you know, a superhero genre or anti-hero genre or whatever you want to call it. And then I've got elements of fantasy because of the world building, which is something I didn't even realize I had until a friend of mine, Kayla, my co-host on my show, told me. She's like, you know, this is kind of really like a fantasy story, the way that you've built the world and, you know, have certain elements. I was like, I didn't really think about it, but my influences being like Tolkien and George, you know, Martin, makes sense. They would have that in this as well. So I'm excited about it, man. I think it's a fun story. I think people will connect with it. It's a hero that, you know, it's a guy that's discovering himself. He struggles, you know, struggles with a lot of things, you know, including anger, you know, control over his emotions. You know, he's got this, he's got a little bit of PTSD that he deals with. We never really call it that within the book, but it's basically that's, you know, he has a traumatic experience that has put him in this situation. And anytime that gets kind of triggered, he gets thrown into this like nightmarish flashbacks of what happened to him. So that actually the last colored page that you showed up there on the campaign is the first page of this nightmare scene of when he just kind of, he disappears for a little bit, goes into his own mind, and he has to deal with this nightmarish vision of what happened to him. And it's very traumatic. It's scary. It's something he has to deal with, you know? So he's a fun character to write because he's not perfect. You know, he's very as much power as this character has. Cause I wrote this character to have a lot of power, like, but he can't tap into it, you know? So he's only got a fragment of his actual power that he can use.
Very cool.
Yeah. So it's something he's got to try to learn and develop and grow as he goes. And he's just kind of got like the base, you know, the bare minimum, you know, the ground floor of what he can do in his power, which is still pretty impressive for the character, obviously. But there's so much more that he can learn.
It adds layers to him as a character, and it also shows like development, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
And growth, you know what I mean? Like how he could unlock and tap into that power eventually, or what he has to do that. So, dude, like I said, man, you're getting me excited with this. I think the episodic way is a good way to go, and I say that only because I was able to fund my comic Galactic Rodents of Mayhem, and I did it ambitiously, like, hey, let's just do a big book because I'm thinking let's just like a movie, you know, and you got like the first part, and then COVID hit, and we went through some hell, but we fulfilled the book, and I'm thinking like, what's a good way to kind of grow the story to a new audience? So you have a great book here. I don't know if you ever want to tap into bringing it maybe once it's finished, like releasing it on maybe Kickstarter with maybe another variant or something, just to get it to people who are oblivious to everything, but just go on there looking for books.
True. Yeah.
So, you know, I'm just saying you'd be surprised. That's why I went to, like I said, okay, I got an Indiegogo. I'm just like, you know what? I kind of want to also bring it to people that never heard of it on Kickstarter, because again, I'm still trying to grow my brand and trying to get out there. So I said, what's the way to do it? I don't want to do the whole volume. I said, let me go episodically, and I'll do what's called like a creator's cut, and I'll add a lot of bonus stuff and even little like story fillers of the going ons in our universe. So I've done that, and I've able to fulfill, you know, or to crowdfund the first 4 issues, which are pretty much the first volume, but going episodically. And now that I got Grom on Indiegogo, I'm bringing it back. People were expecting the volume 2. I'm like, I can't do volume 2, man. I'm like, I'm going on an episode by episode basis. I'm literally going to do the issue by issue thing, because again, I think subconsciously, I just love the fact that you have an issue to look forward to, a new chapter, a new story, new art, variant covers here and there. And I think it plays into what I love so much about collecting comics. And something like you, like I kind of fell off a bit of maybe mainstream. Again, I still find myself going back to the oldies or some of the cooler stuff or some of the stuff. But again, to tap into that, I think the independence and of people, if you guys are checking out Indiegogo or Kickstarter, there's people that are yearning for these type of stories, and they're digging deep looking for them. And I think if we, to get to a Reaper Destroyer issue 50, that would, dude,
that'd be awesome. I mean,
it's just exciting, right? And even me, that I'm just looking at your campaign, I could just see that the energy is here, the passion is here, and listen, Joe, I'm gonna put it out there right here. Listen, I write as well. I'll send you an issue of Grom Volume 1 so you can read for yourself when you got free time, so you can see what I bring to the table as a storyteller. But I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna get lost in this universe. I want to call dibs on a spin-off character, like a story arc. I'm telling you.
Well, I'll tell you what. Like my brand or my company, whatever you want to call it, Superior Press. Like the whole idea is, I want to build a universe. You know, like I want to build my own collective universe. shared universe, if that's what the term is. And mainly because, you know, I grew up creating characters as a kid. You know, some of them I still keep, as far as like some of them were good enough ideas. Like Reaper Destroyer was a character I created in my early 20s. There's characters I created in my late teens that I'm still going to bring about. But I always wanted to be like an Image founder. I always wanted to have my own studio within Image, was the goal when I was a teenager. You know, and now it's just like I'm doing that without the whole Image. Now I'm just my own company and my own characters. It's a shared universe. It starts with Reaper Destroyer, and then everything else I put out will be within that universe.
Nice.
And a lot of the characters I have in this book, like one of my characters, Victor Reigns, who is he's like my kingpin of the world. Like I call him like he's a mix between like the Kingpin and Hannibal Lecter without the cannibalism. You know, he's just a very powerful, very smart, tactical person, and he's going to be like in the unit, almost like remember Lynch from Wildstorm? He was in Wildcat, Stormwatch, Gen 13. That was kind of the inspiration of having a character like that would cross over different titles. It would just be that kind of collective tissue for the entire universe. Cool. Yeah, so it's
Superior Press is, you got a lot of other characters that are going to be debuting under Superior Press in the connected to the eventual universe.
Yep. In fact, in the first issue, Reaper Destroyer, I've got introductions of a lot of different characters that will get their own spinoff. You know, within the story arc in general, you're going to see a bunch of characters that would like to spin off into their own titles, and they're just going to kind of be introduced into this world. So like I said, I've got a large cast of characters within the story, even though it's focused mainly on 3 main characters as we progress the first story arc. But there's going to be a lot of cameo stuff that I'm going to bring in characters. They're going to fit within the universe, and they're all going to have their own spot, why they exist, what they're doing, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then hopefully I can spin them off and, you know, and create this company. Like my whole idea is to create an actual company, publish multiple books at the same time. I would love not to have to do crowdfunding years from now, you know,
I know, trust me. Isn't there? I mean, I know you smashed your goal, but I mean, I don't know if it's smashed in the first day or in the first couple hours. I mean, I don't know.
In the first couple of seconds.
Oh, nice. So then you must have had a great pre-launch then, right?
Dude, like, I'm going to say, shout out. There's a YouTuber, I'm sure you know him, Michael Bancroft. If guys haven't been out there, check him out. He's got a fantastic show every night at 11 o'clock. And I launched on his show.
Right? The Lucent.
Yes. Yeah. He's got a great book called The Lucent out, which amongst a lot of the independent books I've read, like that one is definitely something that could be made into a movie worthy. You know what I'm saying? Like he's got an awesome story over there. But he launched my book on his channel, and we funded that 5,000 goal in like seconds.
Oh,
it was insane. Man. It was insane. Awesome. We got, I think, almost $18,000 within 40 minutes.
Beautiful, man. Awesome.
Yeah. So shout out to Michael Bancroft. You know, he had
shout out to spotlighting the little guys, man. It's an amazing thing, especially powerful art like this and a great universe. It's, you know, the spotlight was well merited. And let's hope it could get there, because again, like, so since you had a great launch, and you had Michael Bancroft helping you with that launch, and what I was gonna say, I could relate to the stress of crowdfunding in general, just to like, you know, like, oh man, we go, well, I got to crowdfund this, crowdfund that. Right. What I want to tell you right now, because you did so great on your first goal, you're good, okay? Like, you're good, okay? Even if crowdfunding is the way, I mean, think about your business goals that you want to reach, and just think about how crowdfunding could amplify that. And maybe you could be a standout in that, hey, I just don't want to produce like just a book here, book there, book. Like, I want something meaningful. And what's to say that this thing can't eventually grow into something that may be pursued by maybe like a Big Two or something like that. It's not out of the rough. Maybe a Valiant. I don't know if that's something you want, but maybe just something that can get you to where you're going to have that readership, like that real big readership that's going to get plugged into the world that you're creating. And you know that this is really going to be like a nice comic book venture, like Superior Press is going to be out there. I don't know if your goal in this is to get into mainstream comic book shops, but imagine if you can get into mainstream comic book shops. Like if you put this on a shelf, dude, with Superior Press, like people who just dude, it calls the attention. You get what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
don't know how big you want to go with this, but
Well, I
you
would love to
laying the
take it.
seeds.
Yeah, I'd love to take it as big as it absolutely could go. Like I would like once I get all four of the first issues crowdfunded and fulfilled, I would like to then try to get that first story arc into the LCSs, because then I could release it on a monthly basis. It would come out on time, and I'd still be
For
working on
that
the next
first arc.
volumes. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. You know,
yeah. And then you get, I guess you got a
yeah,
buffer and you just could keep on
either
doing it
four
that
issues
way.
at a time, or a graphic novel, or something of that story arc as I'm working on the next,
That's good.
crowdfunder. And crowdfunding is great for me. Like that's little guys like me have an opportunity to get out here and live a dream. And as long as that's available, I will definitely do it. But I'd like to try to get to a point where you have your own company, you have your own store. When you release a book, people, you don't necessarily have to rely so much on the crowdfunding to get the book made. That maybe you're at a good point to where you're making your own product and then just selling stuff. Whether or not that happens, I don't know. That's down the road. Right now,
Yeah.
crowdfunding works great for what we're doing right now. Short
Yeah,
term is
laying the
just this.
groundwork.
Yeah, short term is just building what we can build from the ground up and starting a Reaper Destroyer.
Excellent, man. So listen, I mean, for people who haven't backed this already, I definitely say just jump right in. It's good to get behind a visionary, and when you're already laying the seeds for a company, for an integrated universe, I mean, that's all we kind of want in comic books. But again, I understand that everyone loves a superhero story. One thing I do like about Kickstarter is that you could send out surveys to your backers and you can get some feedback. And I've always wrote kind of horror stories. Galactic Rodents of Mayhem was my first kind of like fun kind of story.
Right.
But don't get me wrong, my man. I definitely got superhero in this blood right here. Trust me, and I definitely got something in the works for, I'd like to say, a couple years
Nice.
down the road, 2024. I'm looking at, but superhero thing is one of them. And when I gauge my readers through this survey, I'm saying, how many people like superhero comics? I'm like, do you like superhero comics? Simple yes or no. And I'm getting a resounding yes. But
Yeah.
with some of those yeses, I've gotten people that said, yeah, but I need something different, or there's got to be something to grab me. And again, when I look at Reaper Destroyer, I see what I miss in superhero comics, in getting plugged into a new world. Again, we love
Yeah.
Batman, we love
Yeah.
Spider-Man, but again, how long can you keep these characters going? And I love if you would keep them going and have them evolve organically, like Batman has a son. Okay, these angles could work,
Right.
right? But when you kind of reboot, rehash, I mean, there's like a desire for just something new, to just say,
Yes.
hey,
Yes.
I want to get lost in the Reaper Destroyer, because again, I know all the superhero tropes, I get all that, but I want to
Right.
just taste a different, a different flavor, a different, recipe, a different dish.
Yeah, 100%. And the whole thing with what I'm trying to do is it's almost like what you said, like a new world, a new superhero. It's kind of like when Image started in '92. You had so much history between the big two, DC and Marvel, for so many years, and the Image came along, brand new characters, new worlds. They were derivative or shadows, if you want to say, of other characters, but it was fun to get into a brand new character, new world at the beginning. And that's kind of it's kind of what I'm trying to do here at Superior Press with this style of book. It's what I try to tell people is, like, I try to present something that is familiar but new, right? And I say that all the time,
Thank
and people that
you.
follow me are probably getting sick of me saying it,
Thank
but
you.
yeah,
Oh my
exactly. It's
gosh.
give
That's
give
exactly what
somebody
I'm doing with
something.
Grom. It's familiar but new. Because again,
Exactly. Yeah.
any type of story is a relationship. Do you want to get, what I'm saying? Do you want to get in bed with this story, right? Do you want to, like,
Right.
are you gonna get hurt? Do you want to stay committed? Do you want to date? Like, do I really want to continue dating? Like, that's the way I see it. But I'm like, hey, listen, even though my stuff is like, again, I say that I'm gearing it towards TMNT fans. But
Right.
again, it's so out there. Guardians of the Galaxy people that like Guardians of the Galaxy say, hey, I love Guardians of the Galaxy, and I was drawn to your book. But in that, right, we're getting to that appeal. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? We're getting to
Yeah.
where we're getting
Exactly.
towards, we're striking that chord where, hey, we got something new, okay?
Yep.
But don't be turned off, because it's gonna harken to that nostalgia that we love. It's
Exactly.
new, but it's gonna call back to what we love growing up. That's what I'm doing with Grom. That's what you're doing with Reaper Destroyer.
Yep.
And I'm glad that you said it the way you said it. It's new, but it's familiar.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Familiar
the
but
key to
new.
it.
Like
It's
that's
fulfilling.
yep.
Exactly.
Yep. And it's to me it's worked. Like I used to be in music for a number of years, and that was the same thing I did when I was in a band, My band was very heavy metal, Pantera, Lamb of God. It was like familiar but new, it brought those people in. So yeah, like you said, your book is kind of geared to the TMNTs. My book is obviously geared to like the Spawn, Darkness, Moon Knight kind of fan base, but also I think fans of Game of Thrones could like this, Lord of the Rings could like this, fans of the Guyver could like it, fans of Highlander would like it. It brings in a bunch of even fans of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because I've got some like ninja aspects within this book as well. Because like I say, it's a brain dump of everything that I loved as a kid. And when I'm formulating the story, I'm just pulling all the stuff that I want in a comic. I'm like, I want this, I want this, I want this. And it took me 2 years to figure out how to make it all work. But once I did, it was game on. Because once the world worked, once everything I wanted to do fit into place and made sense with each other, then it was just moving forward and let's tell the story. And I think a lot of people will be able to appreciate the story, even if you look at something like this and be like, dark heroes really aren't my thing. Well, we'll just give it a chance, because if there's something in here that you're probably going to latch onto and be like, oh, I like this. I really, I like this aspect of it.
I think you got a lot going on, especially about giving it a chance. I just think just on sheer art alone, it's there. It just like if you just want to like, it's not my thing, but I'll take a look at the art because it's awesome. You'll read it and you'll get drawn into it. I could see that happening so easily with
it's a visual medium, right? Comic books. I mean, to me, you have to have as best art in a book as you can. And I've been drawing for as long as I can remember. I'm putting my heart and soul, and I'm doing my best work right now as I'm drawing the book. And the idea was like, I have to be able to grab you visually first and foremost. And then hopefully when you get in there, you read the story grabs you and keeps you there. Like that's the whole idea with this book. So this thing had to look as professional as possible. And that's why I went out and I got a lot of professionals to come work on the book with me and lend a hand here or there to make sure that it looked as best as it possibly can. Because I want to make sure that if you put this on the shelf right next to any book, that it's going to be just as good or overshadow somebody. And you look at this and you're like, man, that is something I want to read. And you pick it up and you're like, this book from beginning to end, art, paper quality, all that stuff is professional to a T. Like that's the whole idea that I want with this book.
Dude, you nailed it, man. You nailed it. And I just want to say that, believe it or not, talking to you inspired me. All right. Because just the fact that you said that you had something years in the making, right? And then now it just took time.
Yeah.
And I think a lot it comes with, I think when you get mature, I think a lot of when you're young, you kind of just want to rush something out. But I think when you're older, you're kind of like, man, I got to take my time with this. And I think we're seeing, the fruits of the labor that come with being patient, and how you put this book together. So it's inspiring stuff, man. For anyone who gets into comics, man, just, he had the quality that's definitely worthy of being published. He didn't, he couldn't get in, not for lack of trying, but he's like, I ain't giving up. And I think that's the story of indie comics in general, is the fact that we just don't give up. And, you just keep on grinding. If it ain't your time, just keep on grinding. Failure doesn't mean nothing. Failure just means you got to keep on trying. Failure is not easy to take, but it's part of growth.
And the thing about what makes the indies comic is cool, because you could take this concept, this character, whatever, any stuff you might be working on, and try to get it picked up by a publisher, and they might be like, well, this kind of comic's not in right now. This is not what we're looking for. It's not what the audience is looking for. And I have to say, like, sometimes I'm like, well, who's making that judgment? For, first off, because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are thirsting for good books. So when you have the opportunity to do what you want without somebody else trying to tell you demographic or readers, or they have changed and like no longer they into this, they're into this now. Like, are you sure? Are you really sure? And you get out there and you just put something out like this, and you see the return. You see people get excited for it. 834 backers right now.
That's amazing.
This thing has been out
1,000,
and this came out in May. first time creator, I have no pull. Never
I
been in
think
the industry. My name's not been out there at all.
if you're in demand till this, finishes production, I think you can easily. I think we can get past 1,000. I think we'll definitely cross over there.
Yeah, I would love to hit that 1,000
I think we'll get there.
mark
By
for
the time this
backers.
issue's done,
Yeah.
I believe that will happen. I'm not a psychic. I don't like to go that out on a limb, but I want to say that it's a safe bet to say this could easily get past the 1,000 mark. And right then and there, you have your following, you have your people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it could only grow.
Yeah. You got to start somewhere, and it's a great start. That's why I said I'm not complaining whatsoever. To me, it's amazing. I'm living the dream here. I'm humbled every time I look at this campaign and I see the backers they have. And still, even though the campaign has slowed down now, as it's been out for about 6 months, it's still steadily growing slow. It's still growing slowly, and I talk about it on my channels. I get it out there.
Keep on plugging it, dude. Every time, plug it every time. Keep on plugging it, because again, it's only one thing I learned. Again, a reason why I also put I crowdfund on both.
Yeah.
Target and Walmart, right? Something has an exclusive here, something has an exclusive there. I'm
True.
at the point where I just need people, and I realize that the internet is just so vast. And you might have a great book, which you have already. And you're thinking, wow, only 800 something backers. That's a lot of backers.
Yeah.
But if you think about mainstream, right? Like even the worst selling mainstream book, it's like 40,000. What? 40,000 people are buying like the worst selling. Like what? It's crazy, and it just shows that it's just hard to get seen. It's hard to get like that signal boost.
Yep.
I equate it every time. My analogy is like the internet's this big ocean, and you have DC that's this big ass cruise liner, and then you got like Marvel cruise line with these outfitted with these radios saying, buy our books, check our shit, check our stuff out. And you got people like me that's like on the rowboat with the little cardboard, yo, check me out. You got Joe Sonntag like, hey, Reaper Destroyer over here. Like it's so hard to get seen, but when you are put in that spotlight, people will like what you're selling, because if they just had the time I had to talk with you, they'll be bought in. You know what I mean? And I think that would ultimately also just speak on, that what people are desiring, what that need, that craving for a new comic.
Right.
That's not, so it's not like subjected to, hey, this got to be a 4-issue arc. Let's see what the sales are. If it doesn't get enough sales, we'll push it to it. If not, you get what I'm saying? And that's the reason why I also kind of like am a little bit disconnected with the mainstream publishers, so to speak. Grom had a distributor, and it gets, it's like muddled. Things get muddled, and sometimes you're not in control as you would like to believe. And I just think that when it comes to creators that have full creative control over how they want to promote their books, on how they want to, tell their stories, I think that's the best. I mean, is America not, freedom of speech and freedom of 100%. Hey, let's talk about, this is what we're sharing. And keep on doing what you're doing with Reaper Destroyer. I definitely want to have you back on the channel when you're close to like finishing up, or maybe you got some, any kind of new tidbits going on. And hopefully, if you can get me on your channel would also be
absolutely
cool. But
absolutely.
I do want to share one thing, because you brought it out of me. Okay. You brought this out of me. All right. I wasn't going there. I definitely wasn't going there. But I want to share something here.
All right.
And you're gonna. I hope you'll appreciate this. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to my little website here. GillyWritesComics.com. I don't know if you can see what we got here. Right. It says About Escape. Remember how you said Reaper Destroyer was something years in the making, right?
Yes.
I told you, like, I have like a superhero thing in my head as well. So I want to show you the logo.
Okay.
Because you can judge a lot by a logo, right? You can just tell, this is all right. I want to buy into this universe. I want to buy into what they're selling. So even though I go by Gilly Writes Comics, I got to push myself any kind of way. And I'm even, that's, hey, my press is Gilly Writes Comics. I didn't think about something cool like Superior Press. But when I'm going to tell my superhero story, I did want to do it under the banner of what I like to call Escape Comics.
Okay.
Right? So just look at the logo and just tell me, since you're a 90s guy, if you're just on appeal, if this looks okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I dig that. Yeah.
That looks cool.
Yep.
All right.
I get that.
So, like I'm saying,
That looks good. That's good.
my crazy dream, like yours, would be, I'm gonna put this out there right here in this space. I don't know, 5 years, 6 years, I don't know, 10 years from now, I don't know, but I would love to see an Escape Comics character and a superior press intermingle somehow. I'm just saying. I know we got a lot to build.
I was just gonna say, yeah, there's a lot to build, but
I'm
I'm down to do crossovers with other creators down the line, 100%, because crossovers are fun. You know, you get to promote both characters. I always loved crossovers when I was younger. Yeah,
it's like I feel like I don't know, TMNT, you'd see Usagi Yojimbo, and then Usagi Yojimbo, you see TMNT crossover. It's like they were doing it all the time. I don't know if they were best friends, Stan Sakai and Kevin Eastman, but it was a respect of what they're bringing to the table.
Yeah.
And Batman and Spawn, right? Yep. Like you got all these, like, why are we getting movies that are crossovers, right? Wouldn't that just be, wouldn't the next thing be seeing, like, you know, Justice League and Avengers teaming up? Again, just the way the landscape is, I don't think we'd get there. But I was just gonna say,
I doubt that will ever happen because of the financial stuff. You know, people gotta get their money and all this kind of stuff and blah blah blah.
That's what's killing the fun.
Yeah, but if they ever did, they could. Yeah, I mean, the way, you know, you've heard, you know, The Rock talk about it. Like, you know, he's like, you know, he would love to see DC and Marvel do a crossover event movie. If they did and they did it right, I mean, that thing would absolutely crush. You know, because I mean, it's just, you don't see that kind of stuff, especially not in the movies. You know, you hardly see it.
Piece, it was one comic that it did so well, and it like just never happened again.
Yep.
I mean, even the George Perez, you know, they re-released it, you know, to help raise money. The thing sold out, and you're just gonna get it.
Yeah.
Crossovers are incredible. And I think in the indie scene, I think there's a way where you can do it cool. Cameos, who knows? It's just it's fun, you know.
You know what I always liked, and I'm not a huge fan of Eric Larson these days, but back in the day, back in the 90s, when Savage Dragon was still good, in my opinion, like the first 50 issues or so, because he was an indie book, and all he had to do is just talk to other creators and get them to allow him to use his characters or whatever, however they worked behind the scenes. He had Hellboy, you know, in his stuff, and he had the Turtles in his stuff, you know, and he had he had other characters too. I'm blanking on some of the other stuff, but he had crossovers within his continuity. You know, it didn't have to be like this one-off where he just jumped. You know, he was like, I'm just going to bring you into my story, and we're not going to explain why you're here, why they're different universes. You're just here, you know. And I thought that was cool because he was an indie book and he could do that, you know. And you really don't see that stuff much anymore. And you would think in the indie scenes, and maybe it's just because it takes longer for us to put books out, and I get that, you know.
It takes a lot longer. We're not pumping them out on a clip at Main Street. We're definitely not
focused on something per year, a couple things per year, whatever, you know, and that's the way it is. But you know, I've had some you know, preliminary talks with some people about doing crossover in the future where, you know, like I wouldn't be doing the art because I'm doing my own thing, but you would lend your character, you would be involved in the story, and you put something together to bring two fun characters together and let's tell a story together, you know. And I think that's definitely doable, and I'm down to do it in the future. Is basically the long-winded way of me saying that.
Hell yeah, because like you said, it's that fun, right? And you know, we've seen it work, and we're kind of missing that. And again, the indie scene is a way to do it, but of course, now I see why you're saying you don't want to rely on crowdfunding. Because if you get to that point, you know what I'm saying, where you don't you can play around with this kind of stuff. I mean, with crowdfunding to even make something like this happen, like I said, years down the road, but it would be fun. But I like your mindset in that you're understanding, you know, the reason it's something fun for the readership, the fans. It's something to get people excited about.
Yeah, like crowdfunding is the only way right now. And I love it, and I'm going to continue doing it as long as I can do it. But if I ever get to that point where I can actually take off as a company, you know, and then you have a big enough following at that point where people know Superior Press, the brand, they know the comics that are coming out, and now you can kind of go to the point where you're like, all right, I know that when I can usually sell this amount of books. I have money now because the company is growing, that I can. Instead of doing pre-orders, essentially, which is what crowdfunding is, you just put it up in the store. You're like, hey, I'm releasing the book on July 1st. Here's my store. It's live. Come and buy it. And then you have people come. You're like, kind of like what Eric July did with
Mhm.
Isom, you know, like that, you know, he's got
Man,
a
he
giant
directed a
following.
whole whew,
Yeah, he's got a giant
was
following,
no
so that's a
joke.
little bit different, but that's kind of like the model. Like if you could ever get to that point where that's what you do, you know, and so that point you've moved beyond crowdfunding and you are actually becoming your own publisher, you know. So whether that happens for me or not, I don't know. I'm perfectly fine with crowdfunding right now because it allows me to do what I'm doing. But long-term goals, you know, 10 years from now, whatever it might be, that's what I wanted. I want to create my own company. Like I want it to be its own company. I want to be able to get the books in the stores at some point, you know, and just my controlled company. I put out what I want. I tell what I want, you know, bottom line, you know, no influences from anybody else. Just tell good, fun comic book stories for everybody.
And let's get it. Let's get it. Let's
Hell yeah.
get it.
Hell
Let's
yeah.
get it. Because you know, seriously, because Superior Press, stuff like that, like we need to find a way to get into the stores.
Yeah.
That again, that costs money. That costs, you know, I don't know if that's something that Eric D. July might look into, and maybe us
I
as
gotta imagine
aspiring
he's going to
creators.
at some point. It
Come,
would just make sense, you
you
know, especially
have
with the amount of
to.
money he made through
You
his
have
sales.
to, because that's
Yeah.
that's a big corner of the market. That's like a big chunk
Yep.
that you know that will probably look at your thing on the shelf and pick it up just on because it looks good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he definitely has the resources to do it. So I think watching him and if we can follow that, just even emulate it on a smaller scale, I think
Right.
that's a step. And getting into comic shops is a must, though. I mean,
Yeah.
underground is great. Underground is cool. Like I said, I'm an underground kind of guy. I love it. But
Yeah.
again, there's a part where you just want to share your stories with people that appreciate them.
Yeah.
And
The
to
idea is
do
to get in
that,
front of as many people as
the
possible, you know?
blanket needs to go. The reach has to get out there.
Yep.
It's just what it is. You know, we have to attract more readers, and the only way to do that is to find a way to get into the comic book shops and a system that works. I know even that has its issues, and that that's
Well,
a story for a whole other day, right? But
well,
that I know
true. And
there's issues there, right?
there in general too, because crowdfunding is still fairly new, you know, when it comes to the indie scene, that there's a whole base of people out there that have no idea what crowdfunding comics are. I went to the
Oh yeah.
fan expo in Chicago back in June, I think it was,
Mhm.
and I had a table there with a buddy of mine, and
Excellent.
I talked to a ton of people, and I don't think I came across one person that knew what crowdfunding was. Like I had an ash can in my book, 6-page black and white ash can in my book that I was selling, and eventually I just started handing it out at the end last day because people were like, "Oh, this is really cool. You know, when's the issue coming out?" And I'd be like, "Well, it's crowdfunded right now. I'm working on it. It'll be out next year." And that, you know, a lot more like, "What's crowdfunding?" Or like, "What does that mean?" You know, and then you go into it. The problem is that they are so used to the the gratification now. Like this is
Yeah,
coming out now. I
instant.
can
Yeah,
buy it. You know,
instantaneous. You know, it's just like I want to buy. Hey,
yeah,
can I get it
those
next month?
people
What
are
do I put?
hard.
Yeah,
Those people are hard get right now, right? They're just a hard get right now. So to be able to get them in the future, you need product. So those are the
yeah.
kind of people, like
Very much
after I
so.
get 3 or 4 issues done, then I can start maybe getting those kind of people because I'd be like, hey, these are available now, you know, and they're hitting the stores now, you know, and they're, you know, whatever. The premium book that you get for crowdfunding has something extra, you know, maybe you hit a stripped down
Yeah,
version of the book, you know,
yeah.
the story, but none of the bells and whistles, you know, it's just a story, it's the page count, it's in stores for a cheaper price, you know, and that's how you get that crowd. But, you know, it's doable, it's out there. We just have to, you know, work at it. That's it. You just got to work
But
at it. It
like you
takes time.
said, just that con. Like I've been to a con before, and a lot like when I was trying to promote my stuff. Yeah, it's coming out on Indiegogo. What Indie? What? You know, like it's just
Yes,
like
yes.
they don't. It's just like, oh man,
Yep.
you need to have
It
a
was an eye
website
opener. It
direct
was a
them.
real
It
eye opener for
really is.
me. Yep.
We're
Because a lot of
still
people
so
liked what they
behind.
saw,
Yeah.
but you could tell they weren't willing to go that extra mile to go to the site and
It was
check it
too
out and
much
buy it.
work for them.
Exactly. Yeah. There was
They just
almost
want to know,
like
can I get this in comic book shops in November? Because in November, I know this book, I'm just
exactly.
going to ask for it.
Yep.
I can't do that. Why are you making me work too hard? Right? It's
Yep.
just,
That's
oh my
exactly what it
God.
was, man. It's just, it's no offense, you know, no offense to those people. It's just that's who they are. That's what the atmosphere they are in. So that's great. We're blessed that there is a crowdfunding
Oh,
atmosphere where
for
people will get our
sure.
books,
Yeah.
but we have to actually at some point be able to reach everybody. Because like you said, we're making stories. We want
Mhm.
people to read those stories, you know.
That's it. We just want to
Um,
share it.
yeah, eventually I want everybody to get out there. Like my aspirations are just people to know the book, to read the stories,
Mhm.
to be in, you know, enjoy it, you know, and just enjoy reading the stories and getting lost in the world like I was when I was a kid. And that's basically, it just comes back to like I want to provide to people what I experienced as a kid
Amen
reading
to
comics,
that.
because to me, comics are great when it was a magical thing as a kid, using your imagination, getting lost in the art, getting lost in the world. I can still do that as an adult, but you have to really impress me as an adult, and I've seen a lot of the stuff in the indies really impressed me more than anything in the mainstream. Besides Mark Silvestri coming out and throwing Batman on and just being phenomenal, awesome book, there's not a lot of stuff in the mainstream world right now that really
getting you excited.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's unfortunately it doesn't. But there are books that I see in the indie scene where I'm like, wow, like that reminds me of stuff when I was a kid, art wise, story wise. Like I want to read it. I get excited for it.
Dude, we in the right space. I just hope that something tips the scale in our favor. Because again, even that little bit when I was with a distributor, I thought that was it.
Right.
My book will be in comic book shops, and it was in comic book shops. But the problem was it was an obscure distributor, and they weren't actively promoting my book.
Right.
So it's like I've still got to promote my book. I'm like, crap. This is what I've been doing with crowdfunding. I thought signing with the distributors because you're also going to help promote the book.
Right.
They
exactly.
had no marketing plan. They had no strategy. Just like, okay, we'll just throw it out here and expect it to bite. But like, how does that work?
Well, dude, even Image doesn't really promote your books. Like the people that get signed through Image.
That's what I'm saying. Like that whole system in itself is like it's cutting its own 2 feet and they can't walk in front. It's like, how does that even work? So then the thing is they bank on the big names that sell books, and these steady cycle of big names are the ones that can be creative and throw out, I'll do this story for Boom Studios, I'll do this story for Image, and they can throw any kind of story they want. And we're trying to just keep one story floating through crowdfunding. And it's crazy because getting in comic book shops ain't the end all be all. Because again, at least from my perspective, I learned like, hold up, you got the catalog. You got to look deep in the previews catalog. The comic book shop has to order it, but if he's not getting the pre-order, I'm like, why is it so? And there, shout out to the comic book shops that just went through and did their homework and just say, hey, we want Grom. Because I had a few that did that, and that was pretty cool. But in my own local comic book shop, I went the day of the release. They were like, no, this book ain't coming out yet. It's supposed to come out today. And it's crazy how some comic book shops were ahead of the game and some were just so backwards. So
when you get in that situation,
we're fighting that uphill battle, but we're going, man. We're going.
Yeah, I was gonna say when you get in that situation, it's almost a grassroots. You have to really get on the phones and you have to pound the different stores across the nation and see like, hey, can I convince you to check this out? And that's a lot of work, man. You're your own promoter at that point.
Let me tell you, I work in high school. I'm a husband. I got 2 beautiful kids, and then I try to do a little promoting that I can. We would do a show together. You already know how it is, Joe, right? I mean,
1,000%.
It's brutal, but
it ain't easy by any stretch of the imagination.
Us indie creators are making it happen. It's not easy, guys. You already see. Me and Joe, we wanted to talk about 20 minutes, Reaper Destroy, and that's it. We went on to 52 minutes, but it was an organic flow. You see the passion we have for our stories. You see what we're about. This is what it is, man. It's just about comics. It's just about giving you guys entertainment because we grew up on that high, and we just want to pass along the high. We want to give you our supply, that's what it is. So, guys, I'll leave it here. Joe, any last thoughts, man? Sound off. Any last thoughts? Any last words?
Just if you guys like what you've heard here, just check it out. Give it a chance. I'm working on it right now. Hopefully, I'll get Reaper Destroyer out in July. If you want to follow me, I've got a show on YouTube every Tuesday at 10 o'clock called Appreciating Comic Book Art Live, where me and my co-host Kayla, we look at the art that inspired me, the artists that inspired me, and we look at comic book art from a lot of the 90s stuff, but it's not just 90s stuff, but we sit there. It's a fun discussion about the genre in general, and we just shoot the shit. It's a good time. And I have another show on Thursdays at 9, I think, or 8, I think it is. Yeah. But otherwise, you can follow me, Joe Sonntag, on all social media. Just type it in, you'll find me. I'm primarily on Twitter, but I am on other platforms as well. And just thanks for having me today, man. This was a blast. I love talking comics. I like getting into the story, getting in my story. It's fun to talk to another creator that's got the same passions. I definitely see we're on the same path and the same goal.
Oh, definitely, man. And hopefully we can definitely reconvene on that comic book company scale. That would really be cool. We're shooting for it. And again, this is what it is: comics, having fun, creators, just sharing the love of comic books. and that's what we do. Joe,
sir.
thank you so much for stopping by. This wasn't live. I might do a couple edits, but it was so clean going through. I might just, put it up on Thursday night or Friday night. And hopefully it gets you a few new backers. And if not, it will soon.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it.
It will soon. Trust that. Till next time, guys, it was awesome having Joe, our guest, talking about Reaper Destroyer. Definitely check that one out because I definitely will. Till next time, guys, this is Gilly Writes Comics, co-creator of Galactic Rodents of Mayhem. Geek out.